Hello. I want to tell you about a place where children and young people with life-shortening illnesses can come for support and friendship, and they can bring their families too. Knowing your child is going to die is one of the hardest things that a parent can face. But the journey doesn't have to be done alone. And here you can have fun and laughter along the way. In the words of the founder of Helen and Douglas House, it's not how long your life is, but how deep.
Helen House made an enormous difference to us. It was like having a massive safety net to fall into every so often. A lot of our happiest memories as a family are here.
Recently had someone come and look round and they said it wasn't anything what they thought it would be like. There was music going on in the music room, there was music going on in the restaurant.
It's more like a hotel really. It just happens to be a hotel that can cater very well indeed for disability.
We look forward to Charlotte going off and staying on her own. She stays there now on her own, and I know she's totally safe. She only has to ask for anything, and there's somebody that will give her something, even if it's just a cuddle.
Most people see a hospice as somewhere for those at the very end of their lives, a place where you'd expect to find elderly people with a terminal illness. But at Helen House in Oxford, things are very different. Helen House opened in 1982 as the world's first children's hospice, and some children have been coming here for many years.
My powers have doubled since we last met, Count.
What they have in common is a condition that shortens their life expectancy. But that doesn't mean they're critically ill or that they can't enjoy the life they have. Helen House has given respite to hundreds of youngsters. It's also brought relief to families who might otherwise get no break from the constant task of caring for their loved ones.
One.
Charlotte Walter has spinal muscular atrophy. The condition was diagnosed when she was 18 months old. Now aged 10, she visits Helen House several times a year for a few nights in care. She can come more often if she's poorly.
You've got no space.
When we first went to Helen House, I dreaded leaving her. Her brother dreaded leaving her. But they were so good. They even let Adam stay in the room with Charlotte at night for the first couple of visits, just so he was comfortable with what was going on at night and who was looking after her at night, so that we could get a break. And they said to us, go and have a sleep, and go and rest and relax. And we said, how? We didn't know how to relax. We didn't know how to really turn off. But over the last 4 years, they've slowly, brought us into it, and we now go in. We look forward to it now.
We're going quite fast, aren't we, Daddy?
We certainly are.
Harry Pickering was only a toddler when he was diagnosed with a similar condition to Charlotte. While he received expert care at Helen House, the whole family stayed with him.
I love the fact that at Helen House the emphasis isn't just on the sick child, it is on all your children. You as well. And I think a lot of the time the staff had a whole team of children in our family. It was never just Harry. They'd have Cam and Emily alongside as well. They'd all be in the craft room together doing wonderful paintings, or they'd be in the jacuzzi with Disney songs blaring out. All our children loved Helen House. They used to ask all the time when we were next coming to Helen House, in the same way that children would ask when they're next going to a grandparent's house. It was just like that. It was family, extended family, and the most magical place for them. I think they thought of it as a sort of combination of grandparents and a holiday camp.
Harry died at Helen House when he was only 6 years old.
The staff had set up a bed on either side of Harry's bed so that Hugo and I could be with him. So we were in one big bed, really, the three of us. We were never away from him in that whole time. And Cameron, our son, just came in and out. He slept near us on another bed with my father, with his grandfather. And again, Helen House staff, they've had over 20 years of experience of dealing with families like us. And they managed to guide us through that whole period after watching families like us for so many years.
When a child has died in Helen House, the family stay in the room the child died in for as long as they need to. And then at some point they will make a decision to take the child to our special little room. The child can remain in that room until the funeral, if that is what the family would like. The family usually stay with us in Helen House in between that time, in one of our flats, and are able to go in and out of the room to see their child as often as they need to, day or night. After the funeral and the family go home, we continue to offer support to the family for as long as they need it. We visit them, we run parents groups for parents whose children have died, and they're able to support each other in a way that none of us could ever do. Well, Harry was part of Helen House for many years. Harry taught a lot of us an awful lot about how you care for young children, how you play, and how you're able to talk about how unwell he is. We all got to know and love Harry.
Although Harry was very young when he died, medical advances mean that many children with the most severe disabilities can now expect to live much longer than before.
Shall we go and see Ruth and we have some aromatherapy?
Levine was given little chance of making it to her first birthday.
All right, sweetheart, let's go.
Levine is a little girl with severe cerebral palsy, quadriplegic, epileptic, blind, tracheostomy. She now has developed scoliosis, and she has both hips are grossly dislocated. When we took her out of hospital when she was 11 months old, they told us to take her home to die. She wouldn't see her first birthday. And then they said the winter she would get a very bad chest infection, and then she would die then. And she probably, if she didn't die within the first year of her birth, maybe 2-3 years. But Levine is 16 now. Levine had other plans. But Levine could go at any time. At the moment, Levine is having one upper respiratory infection after another and is being treated by antibiotics. So at the moment, we don't really know what the future holds for Levine. Levine isn't a difficult child to look after. She's a constant child. And you have to be there all the time. You can't leave her. So I needed a break from Levine, and also Levine needed a break from me. And that's what I wanted from Helen House. Someone who would look after Levine the way I would look after her.
Helen House was founded by Sister Frances Dominica. She's been its driving force for more than 20 years. From this small beginning in Oxford, there's now a worldwide network of children's hospices founded on many of the principles established here. But it's now apparent that the need for this special kind of respite care is not confined to the very young. Many of those who've come to regard Helen House as a second home are now adults. For them, a children's hospice is no longer suitable, and that's how Douglas House came to be built next door. This is a hospice for people between the ages of 16 and 40. It's got all the things that young adults enjoy, including a games room and even a bar. Although those who stay at Douglas House have a life-shortening condition, here they are able to control their lives as much as possible. And for a while, they can be free from dependence on their regular carers. Among the guests is Alistair Craig. One of his favorite places is the music room, where he can jam with his dad and members of staff. He's devised a special way of playing his guitar to overcome his disability.
The problem was that when I tried to hold the guitar upright, the wheelchair would get in the way. So I realised quite early on I'd have to play it flat on my lap. I later found out actually that there's another guitarist called Jeff Healy who plays it like that as well, but not for the same reason. It's often quite difficult to find other musicians in the local area, so it's good quite a few of the staff musical as well, so if they're on shifts then you can have a jam with them. It's such a big place that if you want to gather around with everyone, there's areas to do that. There's the dining area, there's a coffee area, and if not, you can stay in your room, and your room's big enough as well to be on your own if that's what you want as well.
For young adults like Alistair, Douglas House provides an opportunity to be like all other teenagers, pushing the boundaries and trying new things in a safe environment.
Alistair can express himself in his music here and close the door and make as much noise as he likes, and it's brilliant.
Alistair has an older brother, so we had already been through the teenage years with him and realised the importance of allowing that child to perhaps have a tantrum and be a teenager. But it is difficult if you are dependent on somebody to try and walk out and slam a door when you're in a wheelchair and know that 5 minutes later you're perhaps going to have to say, please could you come and help me. So it is difficult for these youngsters, and I think being able to come to Douglas House and get away from your parents and be able to be yourself must be terrific.
Because the word hospice carries a stigma, carers at Helen and Douglas House sometimes find families reluctant to approach them.
Hospices are not just places that you go to die. They are more than that. They are places that you can go to for respite care. They're places with very high levels of expertise in achieving symptom control. But we are aware that for young adults it may put them off if they're told, oh, it's a hospice, which is why it's so important for people to get a picture of what we're about here. Because normally if you get people across the threshold, they fall in love with the place and they realise that it is actually somewhere that they're going to be able to come and feel very comfortable, somewhere they're going to be able to come and there's going to be a lot of laughter.
What we offer actually is one-to-one care, and that is what's different from what's in social services or the National Health Service, is that your child will have somebody that is linked with them for the whole of their day, the whole of their shift, and that carer will be responsible for making sure that that person's goals are reached. In terms of the medical care, I think the biggest thing that we have is time. And when I spoke to a doctor who was very new here, I said, what's different for you? And she said, I wouldn't have been able to spend an hour and a half with this person, but I can here and I can really tailor-make her care to fit her needs and also listen to what really is bothering her rather than just look at her as a medical model. I think doctors here look at people as people rather than diseases. And I think that's what adds to what we can offer here.
Helen House and Douglas House is a registered charity which relies mostly on voluntary contributions. Among its supporters are some well-known figures, but most are just ordinary people who generously give their money or their time as volunteers. While the lives of those who come here are often difficult, I believe that the help they get can make a real difference. When Douglas House was built, it adopted the starfish as its symbol. Sister Frances explains why.
This story was told to me by a very wonderful paediatrician who was one of the few paediatricians who believed in our original concept of Helen House. And he told me the story of two men walking along a beach at dawn. And every now and again, the young man would bend down and pick up one of the hundreds and thousands of starfish that had got washed up on the beach and throw it back into the sea. And eventually the old man who was walking with him said to him, look at them, there are hundreds and thousands. When the sun is hot at noon, they're all going to die in the heat. Why do you bother? What difference can you make? And the young man looks at the starfish now in his hand and he throws it back into the ocean and he says, it'll make a difference to this one.